The Zone Coverage Podcast Network.
They may be drinkers, Robin, but they're also human beings.
Hell yeah, let's get Stinko.
Welcome, Giles and Goalie Podcast, the only podcast that you listen to that will not have Avengers Endgame spoilers and that is desperately seeking a sponsor from a plumber.
But what about, I heard the one guy died. The hot guy?
The hot guy.
Yeah. I'll leave that to anyone's imagination. I'm just kidding.
I don't know.
No, I do know, but I'm just throwing it out vague terms on purpose. The one with the metal.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I only revealed on Twitter that the movie was long, so take that for what it's worth. But
fair.
Are you avid movie watcher going to see Avengers Endgame?
No. It's funny. I just had to give my mini speech to one of my employees the other day when we were talking about, because he was talking about going to see the movie today, and I would have had to go to work to kind of cover for him and supervise things, but it kind of worked out. He saw it on Friday, so yeah, I had to give my explanation of why I don't see movies and the fact that I rarely ever watch movies to yet another person this past week. So no, I have not seen it. I did not see Xfinity Wars. I'm not going to see Endgame probably anytime soon.
Now, this may be a spoiler, but isn't Xfinity Wars the epic battle between you and customer service?
Yeah. My build recently just went up. That's what that. I'm trying the finger snap thing that's not working.
Yeah. Actually, I did see it this weekend. I saw it in Iowa, which, shocking to those who run social media accounts for AHL teams of that particular area. But it was good, and I actually enjoyed my time in Iowa. I actually don't think that horrible of it, and my out of context tweet appeared to have rubbed some the wrong way, so I'll be spending the rest of my days in the off season trying to make amends.
Yeah. It's such a good thing with them too.
Yeah. And to clarify, if you have no idea what we're talking about, is on Thursday night during the NFL draft, the Detroit Lions took a tight end out of the University of Iowa.
Yes.
8th overall.
Yeah.
Which, LOL, that's a very Lions pick.
That is very Lions, yes.
And then, it's from the University of Iowa, and yes, I am currently engaged to somebody who hails from that state. However, she hails from the University of Iowa, which, big rival. So
Iowa State.
Yeah. What I meant to tweet was, no one likes the University of Iowa.
Right.
And what I ended up tweeting was, nobody likes Iowa. I just left it there. And then as soon as, right after I hit send, I had about a half second where I thought, man, she's going to read that and have just bad things to say, so I better clarify. So I replied to the tweet, and I said the university.
See, that was your problem. You should have just deleted the tweet, man.
And I try to not delete tweets. I try to just leave it out there. But, yeah, that's an instance where I should have just deleted it and re-clarified, because it got quote tweeted by somebody called @StateOfStats. And sent to the Iowa Wild, who then had a nice dig at me the next day on yeoldtwitter.com saying, "We love Iowa." So that's what that is.
That was the Twitter beef I didn't know I needed in my life.
Yeah.
It's tremendous.
The one team that's been good to me, and I somehow managed to rub them the wrong way, so I can drink to that.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
So no Avengers. Do you do Game of Thrones? That's
God,
big
no.
right now. Okay,
God,
I don't
no.
either.
Yeah.
Man, we're really killing it with the pop culture here on this
Yeah, you know, I
podcast.
did. So when Game of Thrones first came out, my ex, my girlfriend at the time, had already read all the books. She was one of those Game of Thrones hipsters. And so she watched the show right off the bat, as did another friend of mine that was a roommate at the time. And so they would watch the show together on Sunday nights, along with another friend of theirs, because they were all mutual friends. I, on the other hand, was in the other room watching baseball usually. So what I have seen of Game of Thrones is some of the nudity scenes in the first season, because they would alert me when there were particular things on the television that I might enjoy seeing. And that's it. That's literally it. So I have not seen that is my extent of Game of Thrones-ness, and if you know me, you know that is very much not in my wheelhouse. So
I tried Game of Thrones season 1 a few years ago. A friend of mine lent me the DVDs of season 1, and I just tried it, and I just couldn't get into it, and I just couldn't keep going, and people yell at me to just try it again, and Jamie and I say we might, but it just never becomes like a pressing thing that we feel like watching. So I don't know. Don't bet on me getting into it anytime soon.
So on the bright side, you will never hear Game of Thrones spoilers on this program.
Yeah,
that's
good.
the message here.
Yeah. So no Avengers spoilers, no Game of Thrones spoilers. Yeah, we're killing it. So, and we're really just trying to stall for time because there's absolutely no Wild related news this week.
Yeah,
so
pretty much.
we've had to just kind of ad lib with the open here, and we can briefly hit on a couple of items of note that came out during the week, but nothing dominated the news that it's going to require us to have a full-on discussion. So
right.
The only things that I really got out of last week was one, I guess, to clarify from last week, we had our Kirill Kaprizov question, I guess, and it was clarified to me, and then actually later Michael Russo did the mailbag where he had Kaprizov as part of that, but it was clarified that those rumors did come from Russo, which I missed
I did
originally.
too.
So.
Yeah. So we were wrong about that.
Thankfully, he didn't yell at us to read whatever was in that I missed. But yeah, so that.
But then he also came out in his mailbag and said that it did come from somebody within the organization. However, they prefaced it with saying that it would be extremely unlikely, and Russo yet again contacted Kaprizov's agent, who said it was virtually impossible.
He got agent speak back.
Yeah, exactly. So. Never say never, but those 1,000-to-1 odds that I put on Kaprizov coming over here are looking pretty good still. So, obviously we were wrong in that we didn't know where it came from, and it came from the most reliable, person in Wild media that you can really think of. But at the same time, the end result is the same because even he clarified later that somebody thought that might happen, but that's just not the case.
And yeah, I love my 5,000-to-1 Lester odds on that happening, but it doesn't seem highly likely. But Wild fans can only hope as they cling to it this off season. But they're going to need it. And kind of the other pointer that I had from the last week was I kind of made the rounds on Friday. Elliot Friedman of Sportsnet, one of the biggest hockey insiders, either him or Bobby Margarita. I don't know which one you...
Or the guy that's Hockey Insider with 5 R's.
Yeah, that's true.
He's the third one.
Yeah. So he did a radio hit on Sportsnet in Calgary Friday morning, and he was asked about the Flames trade deadline deal with Minnesota for Jason Zucker, and would there be any interest in revisiting that. And he said it's possible. And so this has kind of, sparked. It sparked a column from me that you can read on Monday that the Wild don't need to revisit this with the Calgary Flames.
No.
And we've talked about this ad nauseum before, but just to kind of hit my finer points of this article is the Calgary Flames are going to be a cap team next year. They do have like roughly $13.5 million in cap space going into the offseason, but they have some notable RFAs like Sam Bennett, Matt Tkachuk, and the goaltender Riddick, who weirdly didn't start in the playoffs, for which I don't understand. But so you factor in those guys, so you're going to run right up to the cap. And if you're looking to trade with the Calgary Flames, you're going to have to pretty much take on equal salary coming back. You can't just dump Zucker and his $5.5 million on the Flames. And so that really leads me to believe that, like, Michael Frolik or James Neal would be ardent contenders to be coming back,
James
which
Neal.
is a major red flag, because Friedman did go on to reference that the Flames would try to use like their defensemen as, which they have as depth, as kind of a point in maybe acquiring somebody more up front to help with the Gaudreaus and the Bennetts and whatnot. But unless the Wild trade Jared Spurgeon and kind of start to make a crater on the right side of the defense, I don't see how Calgary at all makes sense as a trade partner.
No, and we'll get to this later, but there's plenty of rumors to go around when it comes to one Jason Zucker, or trade rumors in general, just because that's what people do this time of year, because, well, they've got nothing better to do, as kind of we're
it's silly season.
Yeah. It's HF board season.
Wait, and I'll say this, like, this is just completely off topic, but if I thought hockey off-season had a silly season for rumors, like going through a transfer period with soccer, that is so far off the walls. It's awful.
Well, those fans are, I mean, they really make us look like amateurs over here in the States.
Yeah. The Liverpool Reddit always has in the off season they track the Liverpool chartered plane, so they see where it goes. It's crazy. I'll just say that.
It's like Parisian Suitor all over again, just every season with middling players.
Yeah, no reporters don't hide in bushes over there, but they just track the planes. Yeah. So, and then the other kind of pointed note that I had was in that aforementioned Michael Russo mailbag. He pointed out that the Wild have taken their third jerseys back to the drawing board and won't have one in 2019-20. Yes, which is disappointing to us. But I want to read the excerpt here, because I sent you kind of my thoughts on what this was. And I can't remember exactly where I had heard it before, but I want to kind of go ahead and kind of say why there's no third jersey next year. So in the mailbag he answered, no, it looks like the Wild will only have normal home and road jerseys next year. The Wild had some designs for third jerseys that they liked. They did research, and they had like a fan survey that we talked about.
Yep, season ticket holders.
Sorry, this is getting really interesting with the cat.
Yeah,
just,
we're both getting just assaulted by your cat,
rubbing
Mauer,
up on
right
everything.
now.
Yeah. And then so what he said was, they basically took the third jersey that they found to be the best from their research and the fans' input, which questionable.
Hey, well,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, our latest review says we're too harsh on the fans, so we're going to try to be more nice.
I don't know that I'm capable of that.
Yeah, that's shooting for lottery odds.
It's kind of my
thing. But anyway, they had tested it out on the ice, and it did not pass the TV test, which basically leads me to believe that this was some kind of darker variety of jersey that they... he wants to go in the box.
Yeah, he's eating it.
Sorry, the cat's trying to jump in our equipment box. But anyway,
we have enough equipment problems as it is, Mauer.
Mauer's really tempting fate here. But anyway, the my thoughts is there was a rumor floating around that the Wild were floating an idea of a black third jersey, which that basically takes me that is the starting point for what they tried to test out, was that it was said black jersey, and that maybe like the numbers might not have been light enough or it was too dark, but I am fairly convinced after reading that the black jersey was selected.
Yeah, it is possible that it was a dark green one, but it was just too dark or whatever the situation may be. But when you say it was a black jersey that didn't pass the TV test, I can't help but to think of the Marlins' new black jerseys, where you can't read anything on them at all, and it's like it's just comically bad, like how dark these jerseys are, and like just it's so funny. So I don't know. I mean, being jersey aficionados like we are, it's a little bit sad they won't be seeing a third jersey. He did go on to mention that they're doing the full court press on getting a Winter Classic, which I'm sure will make all sorts of Wild fans way irrationally happy. And that would bring upon a third jersey, as we've seen with a lot of teams. But I don't know. It's weird to me. Like, how do you design a jersey that doesn't pass the TV test? Like, how... What I'm really, really fascinated by this now. Like, I really want to see this prototype and be like, how did they screw that up? I mean, given the jerseys we've seen in the NHL, how did they screw it up so bad that they couldn't go forward with it?
There's been a lot of egregious ones out there that have passed the test, and So, it'll be interesting to see, and I am not going to put any kind of hope in getting the Winter Classic for their 20th anniversary season. It feels like a long shot, and I know the NHL is more sympathetic to teams with anniversary seasons now. It seems like outdoor events, but I'm not betting on it one iota. Yeah. So take that for what it's worth. So the NHL playoffs carry on here as we record. We're now in round 2 of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Indeed. And I guess we should discuss the unfortunate ending that took place to the beloved Golden Knights season during the week. As most people are probably aware, the Golden Knights were carrying a 3-0 lead midway into the third period of Game 7, and a 5-minute major cross-check called to Cody Eakin allowed a 4-goal power play barrage from the Sharks. The game went to overtime, and I think it was Barclay Goodrow scored the winner. Yep. And so, Sharks win. They go on, and they are now playing the Colorado Avalanche, so fully behind the Sharks train. But
then you have money on them.
Yeah, that's why. But how egregious of a call was that on the Richter scale for you?
It was bad. It wasn't, at the end of the day, we've talked about this via DM. The Knights are the ones that allowed 4 power play goals there. I mean, that's pretty bad. And you would hope that a team would be able to, 5-minute power plays, that's a tough power play to kill off. And I understand that the call was pretty bad, but 4 goals in a 5-minute power play, like that's bad. That's some pretty horrific penalty killing. So, it absolutely affected the outcome of the series. But also at the end of the day, they end up tying the game. They go to overtime. So I don't know. I'm as an avid Knights fan myself, I'm trying not to get too upset about it. It's just it is what it is, and you're gonna get calls like that. And could you make the argument for that call? I guess possibly. There was definitely an infraction there. I definitely would call a cross check there of the 2-minute variety. And then it just looked 10 times worse when he gets taken down by Stastny and his ear gets cut open. So I understand why the refs called what they called. It was a bad call, but at the end of the day, that's hockey. They blew a 3-0 lead in the game. They blew a 3-1 lead in the series. You you give team chances, and that's what's going to happen.
Well, my first thought was, good Lord, they called a cross-check.
Right? Zach Parise's at home on his couch like, what the
Zach Parise's kidneys on line one with NHL officiating department.
No kidding.
But yeah, that was my first thought, and yeah, that was just unfortunate that Pavelski went down the way he did and he ended up bleeding because it should have just been like a 2-minute minor in my opinion.
Right.
And in that case, the Sharks only get one goal and then it's back to 5-on-5, and then I just thought just a series of kind of questionable things like for the Knights, and I felt after the second goal, and this was something that Ray Ferraro, who is a very exceptional analyst, by the way, and should be getting more airtime on NBCSN, but negative ghostwriter. We have to listen to Mike Milbury or Pierre Maguire. But he pointed out, he kind of questioned Gallant not calling a timeout right there because they
totally
scored
fair. 2
quick goals, and typically when you see that, especially in a spot like that, you take a timeout and you just kind of hit the reset button, and you didn't see that there. And now in hindsight, that's a spot you definitely probably wanted to call a timeout, but even at the time I was like, why was there no timeout here? So there's that, and then you can't allow 4 power play goals on a 5-minute major, and you gotta sometimes you just gotta suck it up and deal with it if you don't like it. And Jonathan Marchessault had some choice words after it was over.
He
but
sure did.
That was it, and the Sharks are moving on, and there's hope, I guess, for Jumbo Joe to win the cup this year. So we'll see what happens with
That's
them.
a silver lining to it for a lot of hockey fans, because no matter what you think of the Sharks, I think everyone does and should have a lot of respect for Joe and his career. And it is kind of a running joke with the Sharks choking the playoffs and all that, but it would be really nice to see him get one, just because he's one of those good guys in the game that that's really done very well for himself and is obviously on the back end of his career, the very back end of his career, and it'd be nice. So
yeah, and then the next night it went even sideways for my betting interests from our Vegas stint when the Washington Capitals were taken down in double overtime by the Carolina Hurricanes. I had that, especially in that second overtime. Carolina was just all over Washington, and as much as I tried to ignore it, you could just see that was coming because it was like watching a power play continuously all period for Carolina, and
right.
I keep coming back to the goal that Holtby allowed to start the third that tied the game on, I can't remember who scored. It was Jordan Stahl scored the goal for Carolina to tie it. Just a bad goal where Holtby was horribly off his angle. But it is what it is. So, second round, did you take part in the second chance bracket challenge?
No, I did so poorly in the first round.
You were deterred.
I tucked my tail between my legs and I went home. I mean, that first round, now that it's completed, we can kind of talk about it. But we talked about how crazy it was. Just Tampa losing kind of alone was crazy enough. And then with Washington losing, that sealed the deal. All 4 division winners lost in the first round, and that's, I don't know when the last time that happened in the NHL was, if it ever has. So kind of one of those years, like one of those years that you look back on after the fact and you're like, man, that was a wild year. Like, how the heck did the Hurricanes win another Stanley Cup, or how the heck did the San Jose Sharks finally overcome their chokiness? Well, that's how. When you wipe out 4 of the best teams in the league in one fell swoop right off the bat, that's how that happens. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes going forward. A lot of not the usual suspects in the playoffs right now, and that's a good thing though. And I think it's too bad the NHL sucks at their job, because this should be something that is good for the NHL, seeing as how these nondescript and non-powerhouse teams are now advancing in the playoffs, but they'll find some way to screw it up.
Our bracket challenge contest for the podcast is the most sad sack crap I've ever seen.
I know.
Looking at the results after the first round, our friend Brett Marshall leads the crowd with 59 points. He got 5 out of the 8 picks right.
Yeah.
The problem for him going forward is Tampa Bay was his pick to win it all, much like the majority of us in the pool.
50%. So I looked at some numbers on it. We had 36 entries. Half selected the Tampa Bay Lightning. And now, at this very moment, there is 3 entries with their champion in it.
Yeah.
3. 1 Bruins, 1 Sharks, and 1 Islanders. And that is it. Out of 36 entries,
yeah, there were some other teams sprinkled
alive
in there, like the Flames, the Leafs, the Jets, Preds, but they all bounced in round 1. So
3 out of 36. Incredible.
So then I guess to kind of go over, since we really didn't get a chance to talk about it before, but to go over the second round matchups, essentially, that's the word I'm looking for.
Sure.
And we can start with the game that's on right now, Colorado and San Jose. I'm assuming you're going to roll with San Jose as they currently lead.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because Martin Jones is not very good. However, Martin Jones in the final 3 games of the Vegas series was very good. We watched that Game 6 together at Reed's, and my God, he was incredible. Yeah. And so it's just a matter of which Martin Jones is going to show up for this round. I don't know that anybody really loves Colorado going forward because they are still only a one-line team, and their defense and goaltending is kind of suspect as well. So, yeah, I like the Sharks. I don't love the Sharks, I guess I should say, just because of that Martin Jones factor, but I like the Sharks to move on.
Yeah, I picked the Sharks, and right now they're trailing in Game 2 as we record here at intermission, but I still think the talent of the Sharks is good enough to overcome the Avalanche and,
Erik Karlsson
Martin
alone.
Jones. Yeah, I mean, Erik Karlsson carried Ottawa to a goal from the Stanley Cup final, so I don't think that's much of a problem. But yeah, I got the Sharks in this, and then the 2 series I actually was proudly correct on in round 1 was the Dallas Stars and the St. Louis Blues beating their respective teams now into a second-round matchup. Currently, they're tied 1-1. Who are you picking going forward?
That's a tough one. Yeah, they're showing the series tied 1-1 right now. So, I don't know. It's tough because Ben Bishop is playing pretty well. But at the same time, Jordan Binnington's playing very well. So, we usually focus on the goaltenders in these kind of situations. I don't know. I kind of like the Blues a little bit more. I feel like that team is just, if you look back to February 1st or whatever, or sometime in mid-January, they're undoubtedly one of the hottest team in the NHL, maybe save for the ill-fated Tampa Bay Lightning. But yeah, so you got to kind of like them. They made pretty short work in the first series, so it should be interesting to see if that kind of pans out for them. I don't know. It's entirely possible. That's going to be a good series, I think. I think that's the series that goes at least 6, just because you got 2 goaltenders that are playing pretty well.
We know Jacques Lemaire is going to be tuned into this series because it's just going to be 2-1 hockey all the time. I'm actually gonna go with Dallas.
Ooh.
I've been riding the Ben Bishop train,
Sure.
and he in the playoffs he has a .938 save percentage. So I'm very big on him. He hasn't. I guess kind of looking more into the analytics, he hasn't had a lot of, a lot of great success at like even strength or anything. But I still think kind of moving forward, you have the upper hand in goal, and that always is important in playoffs.
Sure.
So I picked the Stars to win that just solely on the fact that I think Ben Bishop's going to take them to the next round. And then we have over the East, Carolina and the Islanders. And I actually, to preface this, I did do a second round bracket, second chance bracket. So these are all the picks that I made within the bracket. So if you're disputing that I did this beforehand, you can look at this bracket, which had to be done before the second round started. So
yeah, I didn't get to that.
But yeah, I picked the Canes. I just don't think the Islanders' run is going to go farther than this. And at the time, I thought, and as we saw in the first two games, not having home games in Long Island was going to be crucial. And it has been, because Barclays Center hasn't provided the same kind of backdrop that I think the Islanders need. And the Hurricanes are just a possession juggernaut, and they are red hot right now. So riding that is probably going to take them into the next round.
Well, I think a big thing, and the reason why I would take the Canes as well, above and beyond the fact that they got a 2-0 lead, they played recently. The Islanders almost did too good of a job sweeping the Penguins, whereas the Canes had to play for an extra week. So it seems to happen a lot where you get a long layoff. You get a really hot team like that. I mean, Islanders looked unbeatable in that opening series, and the Coliseum was rocking. They had, Robin Lehner was playing fantastic. The team was scoring. But then they just get kind of a bucket of ice water thrown on them by not only not playing for, probably a week and a half, almost 2 weeks, but then having to go to the GD Barclays Center, which is maybe one of the worst barns in the league, despite its newness, as opposed to, Fort Neverlose, where they literally have an incredible history and incredible, fan base there. And so I don't know that a whole lot of those Long Island folks are commuting into Brooklyn for these games. But today you could almost hear a pin drop at times, and even the SUV in the front row was silent. So
the glass bangers weren't making any noise.
There was no Chad Graff annoying glass bangers present.
Then the last matchup of the second round, Columbus and Boston. I picked Columbus, even though kind of you talked about the long layoff for the Islanders as being a deterrent. I still thought Columbus is playing so well. I feel like they can overcome the Boston Bruins, who kind of had to, go their 7-round heavyweight fight with the Maple Leafs, who just laughable how predictable the Maple Leafs are.
That game 7 was so anticlimactic. The other two were very good. That game 7 was just a turd.
I made a point to my fiance to say we have to watch Game 7s on what night was that? Was that Wednesday, I believe, where they had both?
Yep.
It was Leafs, Bruins, and then Sharks night. So I said, okay, we have to watch these, and I want you to watch these because I've been trying to pitch how
Tuesday
great
night, but
playoff hockey was to her.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, Game 7's you're gonna get the full on experience. So the compromise to that was the night before, we just watched, whatever she wanted. So
ooh. I'm sorry.
It is what it is. You have to make compromises, and when you put rings on things.
You do?
So yeah.
I'm not familiar.
Oh, sorry. Did I give Roz some pointers?
She doesn't listen to this anyway. Don't worry. Yeah.
Oh, apparently. Oh, we're gonna come back to that. Anyway. So yeah, I was like, we have to watch this. And then the Bruins-Leafs game happened, and she was like, I got to be honest, that was terrible.
It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't a very fun game to watch.
I'm so sorry. Trusting the Maple Leafs to do something here was wrong. So
yeah. No, in that series, I'll stick with my kind of theory. I do want the Jackets to win. I absolutely would love it if it was Jackets and Canes in the Eastern Conference Final. I think that's just a phenomenal story and a phenomenal thing to promote. But I'll probably go Bruins just for the same reasons. I think Tuukka Rask is playing pretty well. Not that Bobrovsky isn't, because but it's such a long layoff, and hopefully they're not riding too high and buying their own hype after they beat Tampa. But maybe they can overcome that long layoff just because They just beat one of the singular best hockey teams in NHL history. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I said, I want the Jackets to win, but my brain is telling me to go with the Bruins.
So as you were talking about you wanting Jackets Canes in the final, I turned my computer on and I showed you that my bracket had Jackets Canes in that in that final. And then for what it's worth, my Stanley Cup final is Sharks Jackets, with the Sharks winning it all, just so all my interests align.
You can cash in that ticket.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, right before you got here, I took the Capitals tickets off the fridge and sadly placed them in the garbage. So
it's a sad day when you have to do that. No, also I think the Bruins will win because you'll get the Bruins and Canes in the Eastern Conference Final. It will be Nino versus Coyle, and those two are just going to tear it up in the Eastern Conference Final because, of course, they will. Because why wouldn't they?
My God, watching Charlie Coyle turn into the player everyone wanted in Minnesota has just been a pure, let me get the tack hammer and just hit myself on the head with it.
Well, to be fair, he did do that in small doses here as well. And I don't think people need to act like Charlie Coyle never did this for the Wild, because he absolutely did. He absolutely had, let's say, 10 to 15 game stretches where he looked phenomenal. And he looked like the next, star of the Wild. But then he would disappear for twice as long after the fact. So I think people need to maybe remember that a little bit, that Charlie Coyle wasn't invisible for his entire tenure with the Minnesota Wild. He did get hot at times. He was streaky, if anything. So just keep that in mind if you're lamenting Charlie Coyle's sudden playoff fever.
Yeah, what is it now? 5 goals? Or no, they played today, right?
Yeah.
So 6 goals. He had one today. 6 goals in 10 playoff games for Charlie Coyle, and to further,
No, they didn't play today. They played yesterday.
Okay, so it is. I have my days mixed up.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
It's Sunday.
It's 5 goals in 9 games. I thought they played today.
No.
5 goals in 9 games. And to further tack on how unproductive he was in the playoffs here, in 44 games with the Minnesota Wild in the postseason, Charlie Coyle had a grand total of 7 goals. He is on pace to match that output here in 2 rounds with the Boston Bruins.
Well, that's fun.
So that's fun. That's a treat.
That's lovely.
All right, well, we can sit here all day and tell you how painful the playoffs is for Wild fans who
Sure.
Love to watch Niederreiter and Coyle tear it up, but we're going to move along and we're going to dive into the Giles and the Goalie mailbag that we opened and actually remembered to hit on this show. But, so we did put out a question on our podcast Twitter account, so we are going to check what you have asked us. And if you're unfamiliar with our Twitter account at GATG Wild Podcast,
yes,
we just tweet out nonsense things from there now. Anyway, first question from Graham Young. Will Bruce survive next season? Short answer, no.
Yeah.
Long answer, no.
No. It depends. I think he could last the whole season, but I think any way you slice it, next season is his last season here. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, if they have success, which is entirely possible, not probable, but possible, I think he could hang around all year long and then, just play out the end of his contract and step away and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to retire, move into that cushy role that I have carved out. But it's also very, 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 very possible he gets fired midseason, yes.
From our pal, Serious Mashup, over way across the pond.
Sure.
He asks, with Coyle becoming a star in Boston and Nino making a run, is it time to dissolve the Minnesota Wild franchise as we cannot have nice things? Well, sir, I would find it completely ironic that a franchise that started out as trying to be what the previous iteration of an NHL franchise here, the Minnesota North Stars, was not. I would find it very ironic that they would not last as long as the North Stars did here if we dissolve the franchise immediately. So there you go.
This is Serious Mashup's introduction into Minnesota. We can never have nice things. That's just how it is. And I think that, once you meet the mostly defeatist population of Minnesota sports fans, you kind of get a feeling, you kind of get to understand what it's like. And the fact that we've just kind of come to terms with the fact that it's never going to happen for us.
Yeah.
And that there's nothing we can really do about it either because of, various reasons.
Yeah, it's not a Minnesota Wild thing. It's a Minnesota thing unless you're the Lynx. But
right. Yeah, our women's teams are awesome.
Yeah, the Lynx, the Whitecaps.
Right.
Even down to like the women's sports, essentially, like, even like the Gopher Athletics. Like the women just clean up in that too. So
men not so much.
Yeah. So bottom line is promote women's sports.
Yeah.
Sidebar, I was very sad to see that the Canadians Women Hockey League was auctioning off all their trophies to the highest bidder so they could make ends meet in their closing up shop, which...
Well, but it sounds like a handful of those teams will be joining the NWHL, which is very, very cool. Very good news.
Right, but, no thanks to the NHL, who can't seem to help out for whatever reason.
Well,
but anyway,
I think now that, hopefully the NHL steps in at this point after what happened.
They were basically kind of throwing their hands up with 2 leagues, and so you hope that now that there's 1 league, they maybe have a little more involvement, but I'm not getting my hopes up.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the mailbag. From Alec, chiming in with a food question, which is better, hot dogs or bratwurst?
I think this is pretty easily bratwurst for me. I think it's... hot dogs are nice when you're 8,
right?
And you still like ketchup. But bratwurst, there's just so much more possibilities there. So many more flavors that you can party with. So, Cat is impressively athletic, Giles.
Well, he is named Mauer.
He is.
There's no bilateral leg weakness on him. God damn it,
none. So yeah, I'm going bratwurst all day. I'm assuming you are as well.
Absolutely, and I think the more important question is, what do you put on your bratwurst?
Oh, it can depend. I'm usually just more or less a mustard guy. I guess if I'm feeling really frisky, maybe some barbecue sauce. I'm always, I'm weird in that I like relish, but I don't ever have it in my fridge. So that's where I'm at.
I'm the same. Like I typically just go with mustard, but if it's if I see there's kind of a fried or grilled onion kind of an option, I throw that on there too, which is fantastic.
Yes.
But yeah, I keep it pretty simple with bratwurst. No ketchup anywhere close to the closest it'll get is if it's at the ballpark and I have to get it close to the ketchup because I'm getting it
pumping the mustard.
Yeah. that's as much as close as the ketchup gets to bratwurst for me as possible. So that's a good food question that we weirdly agreed on.
Yeah.
We don't have many of those.
Oh, savor it.
From Citizen 1, how long have we been lied to about being the state of hockey?
19 years. It's funny because the state of hockey is it's just a marketing gimmick, But it came from legitimate and I think well-intended meanings. It came from no other state in the U.S. has hockey like we do. Sure, Massachusetts, Michigan, most of New England they do play a little hockey, and I'm not going to say that nobody else does, and. We've certainly seen many other states produce better hockey players than Minnesota has, but I think by and by, when it comes to the consumption of hockey at an amateur level, I don't think any other state can touch us, and that's just kind of, from mini mites all the way on up to, how many colleges we have that play hockey. The high school hockey experience here is. We're the only state where they actually scout. The NHL actually scouts Minnesota high school hockey games. They don't bother doing that in any other state because the competition here is so good. So I think there's a lot of truth to the state of hockey, but I think unfortunately it's just become this weird, pandering, bastardized marketing tool. At the same time, like it's weird because you want to be proud of it, but at the same time you feel like such a shill if you say anything referencing the state of hockey in a serious manner.
So along the marketing lines, there is a question in this mailbag from a Jamie Dolezal. She says you have 5 seconds to come up with a new slogan for the Wild.
Where the Wild things are. I get in touch with the looks at every Wild hockey game to help liven up the crowd.
Because all I can think of are things that are like, just sound more like party themed related. So I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Mauer just obliterated Ben.
Just unexpected. That's all.
He's fired up now.
He just felt like climbing my back.
Yeah. I don't know. It's anything but what they've done. God.
Yeah, that's kind of where I come from with the whole state of hockey thing and the whole our ice thing. You know, can you come up with an ad campaign that just like here? I don't know the tagline. Obviously, I'm not getting paid to create this. So, but come up with something that says, you're fans of the Wild, and that's great. But don't come up with something that says you are superior hockey fans to other hockey fans.
Right. And
that's what we keep getting from the Wild. And quite honestly, it's really, really arrogant because it's like, okay, are you forgetting about Canada? and at the same time, are you forgetting about the other northern states that have hockey teams, that have had hockey teams for a lot longer than we have and have very knowledgeable hockey fans as well? Like, it just, I don't like the arrogance of it. I really don't. Like, it really does genuinely bother me that the Wild play into, and whether they believe it or not is irrelevant, they play into this idea that Minnesotans are better, smarter, more deserving hockey fans than any other team. It's just not true. It's just absolutely not true.
I think there's a dynamite marketing opportunity with the Home Depot just by going with Retooled. Retooled, sponsored by the Home Depot. There you go.
We're not rebuilding.
There's your brilliant marketing idea. It was either that or just a parody on the twerk song by Cardi B of Tweak. Tweet.
Apologize for that.
Next Twitter question again from Graham Young. Is next year
Yes, and I've gone on the record several times saying I don't know that he's going to play. I can see it. I'll go as far as to say I think so. In all honesty, I'd probably put maybe 50-50 odds on it. It's the end of his contract. He just had a massive knee injury. Him losing a step was obviously not, him getting any slower probably isn't going to change his game a whole lot because he was never really a speed guy to begin with. But yeah, I don't know. I would put it around 50-50. So I'm going to say, next year, yeah, probably next year is probably his last year.
Yeah, I'd say, we should have made odds on that last week. But call. Yeah, I'd say for me, odds are 3-1 that it's his last year in a Wild uniform, and probably to go even further, I'd say 4-1 that it's probably his last season in the NHL. Period.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, I think you're
that's kind of thoughts on that. Again from Miss Dolezal, where does Victor Rask need improvement with his hockey playing?
Well, he could start by not stepping on pucks. That would probably be usually when a puck comes in the vicinity of a hockey player. They try to play it with their stick, or you can use your skate, but just kind of like in a kicking motion, just not around the goal. Stepping on it is not advisable. The attacks continue.
He just bit me.
Anyway, obviously his speed is the biggest thing. Russo even mentioned this, on the off-season to-do list, it was get Victor Rask a skating trainer, the famous one, I forget her name, that works with the Wild.
Ness.
Yes. But yeah, and he is stuck in quicksand out there, and it's just really hard to watch. And so is that going to make him, a top 6 forward? No, but if he could, get a little bit of stride back in him, get a little bit of speed to where he's at least up to serviceable, I think he could, be serviceable on the fourth line. But
I don't even know if Andy Ness is. And they're going to be able to make miracles happen with that. But she also just asked that because that's the only name she knew in her head.
That's fair. I can appreciate. Significant others having random hatred for players that they don't know much about.
She at least listens to me somewhat, where that she picks up on the amount of times I rag on a player. So that should tell you the amount of times off record that I dog on Victor Rask.
What was incredibly satisfying for me is that we went to the final game of the season, Roz and myself, and I said nothing, right? Like, my biases. I said nothing, and instantly, like, within the first 10 minutes of the game, Roz hated Alex Stalock. The damn net. Why does he keep touching the puck the whole game? And, like, there's this older lady in front of him, too, and I'm just dying. I'm just laughing. Like, you have no idea how on the night were. He was Stalock on top of Stalock that night. He was so all over the place. It was really funny and really kind of enjoyable for me to watch that.
Again, these are all the next few questions here are from Miss Dolezal as we go down the line.
They're good questions, though.
Yeah,
I'll give her that.
Yeah, that's good.
She's been paying attention.
Yeah, not just a little less than a year, and that Miss Dolezal tag goes away.
Uh-huh.
That's exciting. Anyway, what is more obnoxious? Let's go wild or skull?
I feel like this was a targeted question.
Yeah, that's just at you.
Yeah. Is it fair to say I hate them equally? It's not even that I mind the skull chant, even though it was completely stolen from Icelandic soccer. It's the fact that Vikings fans are so ubiquitous in the Twin Cities that they do it freaking everywhere. Just the skull chant on its own within US Bank Stadium. Okay, cool, great. You know what? That's cool. You got something that you stole from someone else that you really like. Go with it, a la the Storm Surge. Cool. But when they're doing it at Excel, when they're doing it in the Target Center, when they're doing it at Target Field, when they're doing it at TCF Bank Stadium, when they're doing, that's what annoys me about it. It's just like, okay, we get it. You like your stupid football team. Please keep that within the confines of your stupid football stadium.
All right. I don't know. I think if I had to pick, the Let's Go Wild is more obnoxious just because...
It kind of is, yeah.
Like, I get the skull. Like, I don't know why Vikings fans can't admit it was stolen from somewhere.
I don't know why that's
so hard for them.
Very factually was stolen.
I know. Anyway. All right. Next question is... I'm going to come back to this one. But what goal song would you choose for the Wild?
Didn't jive with a lot of people for whatever reason because of white people's inability to dance. It was a good hometown connection. It was a song that I think, I had. That was the first time I really watched the NHL playoffs. I really liked different songs you can do. I think there's so many things out there that you can go with. Nickelback of goal songs. It's so lowest common denominator. Completely unoffensive and just completely.
Don't Stop the Party by Pitbull.
Yes, one Nate Wells would
that's tailored at Nate
be
Wells.
Incredibly happy if that happened.
And Nate Wells actually...
I actually had some family over on Friday night and I made steak, which is it's just kind of grilling steaks. Those that I make, not going to impress anybody, but I think they taste pretty good. They turn out. I also do pulled pork a lot when I'm hosting people. Those are good for hosting in general. I have a homemade coleslaw recipe that is just delicious, Giles. You just have to try it.
It's a good one. I actually tried it once last year. I haven't gone back to it again, but it went very well. It's Miss Dolezal's opinion of this, but and you were here for the Super Bowl party that I hosted, and the tachos was kind of done cooking the tachos, and I kind of cleaned up after it and commodity whenever I make it. So I generally make it for when I'm, that's probably my go-to. Next question is, we kind of hit on who do you think will win the Stanley Cup. I said the Sharks.
The Peter Mrazek injury might deter me from picking. So I'll go with the Bruins. Purely, an unbiased standpoint, I think Tuukka Rask is very good. And I think Charlie Coyle wins the Conn Smythe.
Oh, no. That's going to happen now.
Because why not?
Yeah. So, Ben's got the Bruins. I'm going with the Sharks, even though Colorado's about to tie up this series.
Yep.
Just a few more questions here to finish up our mailbag. Again, from Serious Mashup. Player development in this organization does not work as well as elsewhere. Who has accountability on that? Fenn, Leopold, Bombardier. I guess I would have to maybe clarify what he is kind of more specifically targeting, like player development, if it's like prospects coming up and not maybe developing, or, like players maybe referencing like Charlie Coyle, who never fully like tapped their potential here all the time. But, I guess for me, maybe this is kind of a cultural thing where players don't fully get to where they need to go, and I don't know where that starts. So I guess I would say that maybe starts at the top with the owner, who has weirdly tried to say he's not kind of involved in hockey decisions, yet you kind of hear that he is involved in hockey decisions. So I guess I would start there, but I don't know. Depends on what kind of player development we're talking.
Prospects. Ow. Claws. Because they didn't have a whole lot of ammunition to get really good prospects. This is kind of the catch-22, of all the trades they made. From there, the guy's not developing. I've mentioned this before. I know I've brought it up for sure on Twitter. I honestly think that calling up a lot of guys as young as they did, the Nino, Coyle, Granlund, Zucker, all those guys under Mike Yeo, and again, I'm not knocking Mike Yeo as a guy, as a person. I've heard he's absolutely fantastic, but he very much stifled development, I feel like. I very much feel like that was the case, and the statistics kind of bear it out a little bit. Like, those players did steadily improve under Mike Yeo, but you also a less, in their early 20s, maybe things might be different.
Yeah. Bergen for Nylander. Any kind of ad-libs, that would be a terrible trade. I would need a little more for Jared Spurgeon at this juncture, especially considering trades that Paul Fenton has already made. You can't make a hockey trade with Jared Spurgeon. Just a great all-around right-handed shot defenseman. They don't grow on trees, and you can't give him away for just one singular player. You got to extract a little more out of that. So, and then finally we come to our last question of the mailbag from Jamie Dolezal. What are you going to get your significant others for Nurses Week, and will they be making another fantastic podcast appearance?
Fantastic is really being thrown around there.
First of all, clench up for more prostate exams.
When is Nurses Week? I think we're on vacation when that starts.
Let me Google
bad.
it. This isn't a good sign. We have
nurses,
to Google it.
Yeah. So for Nurses Week, I got Roz a baby. She's going to have a child, and that's my gift to her. That's terrible. That's really terrible. She would be not happy with that. No, I'll come up with something. I'll seeing the side of healthcare the way that you and I do now, it is really eye-opening, and I think that those conversations are not had enough, and things are not talked about enough how much nurses really do, because as great as nurses are, they are also very vocally unappreciated.
Nurses Week, for reference, is May 6th through the 12th. So if
I will be.
Yeah.
Buy him a Coke slushie.
There you go. Yeah. So I don't know what I'm doing for Nurses Week yet, and to our super secret classified information as to where we'll record that week. Then probably not that hard. But
good luck.
Yeah. So I'm sure Tom is overjoyed at the thought of more prostate exam discussion on this podcast. So, yeah, that is what it is. That is the mailbag.
Yeah.
Is there any other lasting thoughts you want to share before we call it a week?
No, thanks to everyone for the mailbag questions. Obviously this time of year is for Wild fans right now is kind of a little bit of a abyss for us. So it definitely helps to have this kind of interaction. It's very cool that people send us in questions like this. So we do appreciate it. From my end, I don't have much. I'm kind of I'm enjoying the NHL playoffs, as I think a lot of people are. I'm really excited to see what happens in the second round after the absolutely bonkers bananas first round that we saw. So we'll see. That's kind of just where I'm at right now, is just enjoying the NHL playoffs, and that's about it. I'm not thinking too much about anything else. I still have not written my final article for ZoneCoverage.com. I would like to get to that this week. I've just been very busy recently, but probably get to that this week. I think I have some ideas percolating, so we'll see.
There you go. I don't have a final thought, so that is
nice.
what it is. So thank you to everyone for listening. You can find Ben and I on Twitter at Ben Remington, at Giles Farrell. Podcast is on Twitter at GATG Wild Podcast. You can find Ben and I writing zonecoverage.com/wild, where I will kind of carry on with my year-end player reviews this week. If you haven't, last week I touched on Devin Dubnyk, Alex Stalock, the Wild goaltending tandem. So look for that. You can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, Google Play, Spotify, all that fun stuff. We are Otherwise Fine Podcast, so we do appreciate your support. And if you do listen on iTunes, please shoot us a rating, good or bad. We appreciate it nonetheless. So we will wrap it up for this week, and we will chat with you again next week.
Later.
It's not resiliency. You're making it sound like we're good. That's all. I'm done.